Okay, it's recording. Okay, we're just gonna wait maybe 2 more minutes for people to join. Hopefully people will find the link. But yeah, we'll begin very shortly. Thanks for texting me for the unmute for the music. I did not realize that. Okay, maybe 1 more minute and then we're gonna start. The recording. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our first ever club meeting and our intro to Figma workshop. This is our first event of the quarter, and so we're going to give you a little bit of an intro to UX at UW, what our club is, and obviously Figma, and give you a follow along workshop. So just a little agenda for today. So we're gonna just quickly give you an intro about how does UX at UW work, meet our officers, and then also do an intro to Figma and follow along workshop at the end. So that will take up most of the time. But before we get started, I have this kind of ice-breaking activity. So I'm gonna send a link in the chat, and that will link you to this poll that, so our icebreak question is, what is the worst font to design with? And I have a couple options. It's going to be Comic Sans, Times New Roman, Helvetica, Papyrus, Bradley Hand, or other. So if in case you don't know what these fonts look like, I kind of put them on the left as a reference. So please go on that link and vote for which one you think is the worst one out of these. And if you have another one that you like, just vote for or put it in the chat if you know which one. All right, looks like Bradley Hand is I guess, I don't know, is that winning or losing? Jackie, which one did you vote for?
I voted for Comic Sans.
I honestly think Comic Sans is gonna be good.
I think I just wanted to pick Comic Sans, honestly.
I see a lot of them are for Bradley Hand. Kara, why did you vote for Bradley Hand?
It was between that and Comic Sans, but I think Comic Sans is on the up and up, so
Okay.
went with Bradley Hand.
I see. Yeah, I would probably say my least favorite one is Papyrus. I think that one is definitely not my favorite one. Okay, looks like Bradley Hand is the winner or loser, whatever you want to name it. But let's move on just because we have the workshop to get through. So welcome to UX at UW. So our club's goal is to create an inclusive learning space for people of all different academic backgrounds to explore the world of UX and careers related to it. So we talk about UX design, UI design, UX research, and any other fields that kind of relate to it or flow around UX design. So there's no official membership for this club. So it's kind of open for all UW students, disregarding what major or year you are. And we do have standalone events. So if you miss one event, like no worries, you can always come to the next one. They're open there for you to come at whatever time it works for you. The best way to follow us, keep up with our events, I would say, is on Instagram. So you can follow us at uxuw.club. Or if you don't use social media, I would also recommend to sign up for our newsletter and use your UW email, so that way you can get the all the content in your email. I think maybe Jackie, do you think you can drop the link to sign up for the newsletter? So she'll drop that in the chat, but follow those, and this is how you'll find out about our events. Some events that are coming up this fall quarter. So first one will be, after this one will be our new grad panel. This is where recent UW alumni will come and talk about their experiences in the field. Another one that we have coming up is a FigJam social. So that's a very exciting collab with UX at UW and Figma. So that will be kind of like a social event where you can come and work on your projects or portfolios alongside peers. And there will also be a Figma merch giveaway. So come to that. And our last one is a portfolio resume workshop. So we're going to be hosting a workshop that will help you improve in your portfolio on resume. Right now, dates are TBD, but again, follow our socials, and this is where we'll be announcing all of that information, as well as our newsletter. So just keep up with that. And then another thing that I want to do is meet the team. So I have my officers in here with me. My name is Zenia. I'm a president of the club. I am a senior in visual communication design at the design school. And I was in UX at UW last year, so I'm really excited to be continuing with this year. And then maybe Tiffany, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Tiffany. I'm a senior in HCDE and I'm your vice president.
Hi everyone, I'm Kira. I'm your director of design for UX at UW. I am a junior and I just applied to informatics, so hopefully that works out.
Hey everyone, I'm Jackie. I am a senior in HCDE and I am your marketing director this year.
Cool. And then Emily's not here, but she is our director of external affairs. So we're really excited to be here and like continuing the work of the club, and hopefully a lot of exciting events for you this year. So now it's workshop time. But first, for any people who might not know what UX is, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So UX, or user experience, is kind of like being a good host at a party. So it's really about making sure that everything is easy to find, it's comfortable and welcoming. So just like a good host anticipates guest needs, UX makes sure people can use a product without confusion and guiding them smoothly to what they're looking for. So, and I know there's a popular like terms UX and UI. So if UX and UI were the party, like UX is the vibe and UI is the decorations. So sometimes you can have the best decorations, but if the vibe is bad, it's not going to be good. But sometimes even if there's a good vibe, nobody really likes a dirty party. So that's why how the user feels is very important, and what they see, if it's good, it makes it even more fun and elevated. So what is Figma? So Figma is, for anybody who never used it before, it is a web-based design tool used for creating user interfaces and user experiences. So it allows for real-time collaboration, making it easy for teams to design and iterate together. So designers can use Figma for obviously UX UI design, wireframing, prototyping, collaboration. So even if you're not designing, it's a really nice place to just keep things if you're working with teammates. Design systems and user testing. Good thing is that students actually get free access to Figma Pro. So if you sign up with your educational account, you can get all the features unlocked. So if you take anything away from this workshop, if it's just one thing, I would say this one, just go sign up, get your tuition money worth. You're paying a lot of money, so get your free thing. and sign up and make sure you get verified so you will unlock it, and that will be unlocked for you as long as you have an EDU email. Cool. And just before we start, I did want to kind of give you like a quick intro to Figma file UI. So this is what you would see when you open up a file in Figma. It is very similar if you've ever used Photoshop or Illustrator or like kind of like Canva, but it is a little bit different. But the main things that you would kind of need to take away from here is that you have your workspace in the middle. So this is where your designs will go. This is where like all your work or like your graphics live in. And then there's two panels. So on the left panel, you have kind of more your file specific information. This is where your file info will live, your pages, layers, and also assets. While on the right panel, this will be more specific to your design or whatever you're selecting with their properties. So if you, like you can see, I have this text selected here. This is where the position, the layout, the fonts, the colors, the effects, this will all live in here. As well as on the right panel, you can find the export, the prototype, and share. We're not going to be using the prototype and share as much today, but definitely this. And then on the bottom is your toolbar. So this is where all the tools that you are going to be designing with live in. So your frame tool, your shape tool, your pen tool, everything like that. I think it should be updated for everyone and Figma UI because they've been going through some redesign, so it should be all up to date, I think. They moved everybody to a new UI. What they're getting off is like these floating panels, but overall, like even if it's not updated for you, it should be relatively similar. And if you can't find it, like just type it in the chat, we can help you find it. Okay, so now for our workshop. So today we are going to be designing our own weather app. So I'm going to be teaching you guys how to design this screen of the weather app, but I do want to make sure that you can always make it your own. So I created a couple different variations of the design, just changing fonts and colors, so you can always customize it despite what I'm creating on the screen. I will be specifically designing this one on the left. But again, if you want to change it up, use different colors and fonts, feel free to do that and let your creativity flow and design it in any way that you want. Cool. If that sounds good, I am going to drop a link in the chat to our file. So this is where we'll be creating things. Okay. So I dropped a link in the chat. So this is the file that we will be working on. And I will be sharing my screen with the tutorial. So if it's easy for you, you can kind of do like a double screen, like you can maybe have it halfway open, the Zoom on the side and your Figma on the left. This is kind of how you can follow along. And just for your reference, this session is recorded. So if at any point you feel like you can't catch up and want to just watch and then do it later, you're welcome to do so. And you can always, we will post this workshop on our YouTube, so you can go back and watch it if you were confused at any point. So just, I'll try to go slow just because I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. But again, if you're falling behind, feel free to type questions in the chat and then the officers will try to answer them as much as they can. But I will begin now. Okay, so just to give you a short overview of our kind of Figma file, as you can see here, this is kind of like the Figma UI that I was like talking about. So we are going to have a couple pages over here. In this page, I have the examples. So these are all the designs that I created. And if you want to specifically like take one and like recreate it specifically, you can feel free to do that. I will be doing that with this one, which I'll show you how to do that. But again, like create it your own, doesn't matter. Like if you create it exactly like that or different. And then on the left, another page that I have in here is icons and illustrations. So I prepared a couple illustrations for you guys. Again, it lives over here, where you can find some of these like different weather illustrations that I collected. I have some icons that we'll be using, and then some different like weather related illustrations. So you can use them in your designs, or you can search up your own, or use none at all. And then on the bottom here, if you're ever feeling like you're falling behind a little bit and want to just copy what I have created, I do have these components here. So if you're like just watching and want to figure it out later, you feel free to grab these. I am going to be creating them from scratch together with you guys. So, but again, like this will be recorded. And if you want to just take it and mess around with it, feel free to do that. And then so on our last page in gallery, this is where we'll put our final designs, but where I'll be working and where everybody can be working is in this build your design here page over here. So this will be kind of our workspace. So feel free to kind of grab a corner somewhere and feel free to build your design over here. So what I'm going to get started with is I'm actually going to grab my design just so I can kind of like have it side by side, just because I'm going to be recreating it. So what I can do is click on this where it says weather and just and I'm going to press Control-C so that to copy it. And then I'm going to go into the build your design here page and I'm going to paste it over here. So just for the sake of time, I will be copying this, not creating an original one, just because sometimes I spend too hard on like deciding fonts and things like that. So what we're going to get started with is creating our frame. So what you can think of a frame is kind of like our sheet of paper. So this is like if you are designing something, let's say just like I'll show you, like if I made the square, it just kind of lives in this empty space in Figma, but it's not necessarily on our sheet of paper or our frame. So when I want to do a frame, I'm going to click on this tool over here. So this is the frame tool, or you can also click F and that will open that tool for you. And I can create like drag and create any size of frame that I want. And this will create kind of like my artboard where my designs will live. I can still design outside of it, but my final design will contain whatever is in here. Okay, so well, this one is not exactly the size that I want for my weather app, so I'm actually going to delete it and then go press F again. So for this specific design, we will be using what Figma does really nicely. It provides you with all different kind of frame sizes, like standard, because a lot of designers design things for apps and tablets and desktops. So you can find those already pre-made here. And for this one specifically, I'm going to be using iPhone 16. So if I click on that, it already automatically creates my frame for me. So this is where my design will live. And I can rename that frame to, so if I double click on the name, this is where I can rename it. And I'm just going to rename it to Xenia weather, just so we can, I can find it later, or you can rename it to whatever you want. But that's basically kind of it. So now I have my frame. I can move it around if I want to, but I'm just going to have it next to my example. So next thing I'm going to do is change the background color of this frame. And for this one, I am going to use a gradient. So how do you change a color of a frame? So remember, I was talking about this property panel. So if I click on my frame, then I have it selected, and that's how I'm going to edit it. On the side, in the properties panel, you can find the fill property. So fill is kind of like your color, what inside your item that you have selected. If you click on this square over here, that will open your color wheel. So by fill, they mean you can have a color, you can have a gradient, picture, or video. So over here, you can switch between them. So if I want to do just a solid color, I can just pick whatever color I want. I can do a gradient, I can do an image and upload it from my computer, and also do a video. But today we're going to be doing a gradient. So gradients are really fun, and you can really customize them. You can kind of, now they appear on your frame, and you can kind of change which direction they go, how harsh they are. But for this one, I'm just going to keep it this vertical line. But I do want to change the colors of these. So now I go back to my gradient panel that I have pulled up over here. And just like changing the color over here, if I click on the color, or in the color box over here, I can see that color wheel again. And I'm just going to copy it off my example just because I don't want to think about what color right now I want to make it. So I'll just do what my past self did. So I'm going to use this eyedropper tool to pick the color off. So you can copy any color on the frame, like wherever you place it, you can copy it. So I'm going to just copy this blue one that I got. And then I'm going to go to the bottom one. So I can either click here, or I can click here to select this one. And then I'm going to copy this blue color over here. So now I have my gradient set up again. Like I can kind of change it like the ways I want. I can also like change it if I want it radial or angular, but that's a lot of crazy stuff. I'm just gonna stick with a good linear, matches my design really well. All right, so now I have my color background set up. So what I'm gonna do next is put this image of the illustration of the rain. So I'm gonna go back to our icons and illustrations page and find whatever illustration I wanna use. You guys can pick from any of these or pick your own or not use one at all. I'm just gonna copy this one that I already had. So I'm just gonna click on it. Make sure I select that one and then do again, Control C. So, and then go back to our build your design here page. And so I want to paste it in my frame. So if I just click Control V, it just kind of places it anywhere on my Figma workspace. Doesn't necessarily place it on my page. I can kind of drag it into my frame, but it doesn't always sit in there, right? So whenever I want to make sure that it's really in my frame, I would select the frame that I'm working on and do Control V. So, oh, it kind of pasted it kind of outside, but now for sure I know that it's inside there, because when, if I download it or if I presented my designs, like I want to make sure that it's in there and not just floating in the outside place. Cool. So now I got my illustration here. I'm gonna try to match it up kind of where it's at over here. That looks close enough. Okay. So now I got this kind of placed here. Cool. So now I have my illustration. I have my background set up. So the next thing I'm going to add is this Seattle, Washington text over here. And for that, we're going to use the type tool. So you can find the type tool over here on the bottom. It's going to be just a letter T, and that will kind of give you this plus button. But what you can do is just click on anywhere in your page. I'm clicking on just on my frame just to make sure it's inside the frame. And I'm going to type in Seattle, Washington. Cool. I guess it's already font that I want it to be, but I got my text. If it's a different font, again, I can select my text and go into the properties panel. And this is where I can find my typography. So this is how I can change it to any different font that I want. Whichever one looks good to you, you can pick one. I'm gonna just stick it with Poppins. Pretty simple choice. And then other than the font, you can kind of tweak your font many ways, a lot of different ways. Probably one of the main ones I would say is you can pick how thick you want it to be. You can bold it, you can italicize it. I'm just going to stick with semi-bold. And then you can pick the font size over here. 18 looks good to me, so I'm just going to stick with that one. And there's some other things you can do. You can, this is to tweak the size between lines, like the distance between letters. You can center align it, right align it, and some other things, but that won't be necessarily needed today. So okay, so now I have my Seattle, Washington on my frame. I am going to change the color white. So remember when we use the fill in the using the frame. So again, this is how we can change the color of anything in our Figma design. So I'm going to pick white for this one. And okay, now I got it pretty similar to what I had. And I am going to put it over here. So, but one thing I do want to do, like I can kind of have it in the same place as over here. Something that I do really think that you can help make your designs cleaner is adding a grid. So a grid, not necessarily needed in every design, but especially if you're using designing mobile design, it's really nice to kind of make sure your things are aligned. What I'm going to be doing is adding a grid to this specific frame as well. So where I can find that is if I click on the frame itself. So I have it selected again. I'm going to go to my properties panel and I'm going to find layout grid. And I'm going to click the plus button. So you already see, like, once I added that, the frame there, the grid that I already had on this frame already popped up, but I'm just going to make a new one for this one. So to make that, right now we just have like a simple like crisscross grid, but I will be making a column grid. So you can click on this like grid icon over here and change it from grid to columns. So that will create these columns that you see over here. And that's just like usually like a standard way to do like web design or app design, helps you get your things aligned. So I'm good, and you can tweak your columns as much as you want. 5 is pretty good for me. You can change the color if you'd like. I'm just gonna add, I think, gutter of 20. That's the space between the columns, and I'm just gonna change the margin to 20, so that will create some space on the side. And that looks pretty good with me. And then just so you know, this grid doesn't actually exist on your design. So if you download it, it won't show up. This is just kind of like some rulers that you can use to help you design. For example, now that I have my grid, I can click on this text over here and I can align it. And if I move it, I can align it to my margin. That way, like if I put anything on the left side, I will know that it will align with my grid and make my design a lot cleaner. And if you want to turn off your grid, like if you don't want to see it, you can click on Control G and that will turn it off. So you can see your design again. If you want it back, you can put that. Or another way also is if you, again, select your frame, you can click this icon in the layout grid in the property panel, so you can hide it just for this one if you want. For now, I'm going to keep it on because I'm going to be adding this design over here or this text over here. So let's get started with the 55 degrees. I'm going to do my type tool again, and I'm going to type in 55. And I'm going to type in degrees. So another thing you can learn here, which I didn't know before I was designing this, is to get the degree, you're going to do either Mac, it's Option Shift 8, or I think on Windows, it's Alt Shift 8. Not sure. If it's wrong, please Google it. I'm just not sure. But that's how you get it. Now I have my 55, but I do want to make it bigger, so I can go and adjust the size of it. Let's make it like 95, maybe a little smaller. Do 90. Let's do 85. Yeah, that looks about right from what I had. Okay, so now I can have it. I can align it over here again next to my grid. The only thing I'm going to change about this one is that I do think the degree symbol is a little bit too big for my liking. And you can kind of change the size of it a couple different ways. But if I just change the size of it over here, like it won't really align to the top of it. So instead, I am going to make a separate text column and type it in again over here. And I'm going to make it, let's do 70. 70 is probably good. Okay, and then I can align it kind of next to my 55. That way it's a little bit not as big, because I feel like when it's too big, you can't really tell that it's a degree symbol. Actually, I think my 55 is too small. I'm going to 90. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, but good enough. And then what I can do is, now that I have these kind of two elements here, if I click Shift and hover over them and click on them, I can select them all together. Another way I can do this is kind of if you just click and hold and drag, you can select all of them. It can be kind of tricky because if you have things in the way, it can get selected on accident. So this is a much more accurate way to find yours. So I'm just going to click and select them. And just because if I want to drag them all together, I don't have to do that separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group them. So creating a group of things, that way they all kind of live in the same bubble and you can edit them all together. So the group things, what we're going to do is do Command G, or I'm not really sure what it is on Windows, Control Shift. I'm not really sure, but the button next to Option or Alt. So now that I have it grouped together, now I can move them kind of together. I don't have to get separated, but if I did want to, I can, you know, double click into them and still edit them separately. So what I'm going to do is then change the color to white. So now that I have them together, since they're both actually black, I can edit them like separately, or sorry, together. So if I go into my property panel, you can see I have my fill color. So I'm going to make it white. And now they're both white. Cool. So now I have my weather. And then quickly, we're going to add this slight drizzle, feels like 53. So what I can do, I can just start typing a new text if I want. But what I'm actually going to do, since this looks like kind of similar to what I want, I can just copy things together. And while I can click and do Control C, an easier way would be to hold Alt or Option on your Mac or Alt on your Windows. And if you click and select it and hold Out, this will kind of pop up this double cursor. And then if you click and hold, this will actually copy whatever object you had selected. That's really easy if you want to, you know, select a couple things and make double of them. So, and since this is already the style that I want, now I can just edit the text to slight drizzle. Cool. Well, now I have that. Same thing I'm going to do with this one. This one's pretty close, but I'm just going to copy it again and type in feels like 53 degrees. Cool. So now I have that now. The only thing, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. So we can go back in our typography and make it 16. And I'm going to just make it like regular. Cool. So now I have that over here. And if I, you know, if I have it like here and I just want to make sure that they align together on the left, what I can do is if I want to select both of them, I can do so by clicking, so holding Shift. If I have one thing selected, I can hold Shift and select another one. So now I have both of them selected. And then on the right in our panel, I have the position section in our properties panel. And you can do a couple different things here, but what I'm going to do is left align it. So this one, like if you hover over them, it will tell you what you can do with them, but you can left align it, you can center it, you can write it. So now if I'm going to left align it, now I'm like 100% sure that they're all on the same left kind of margin. And that makes it easier for me. Like imagine if I had 100 of these, like that would just make my job a lot easier. And also when I do that, it creates this kind of option for me to kind of change the width between them. So now I have this. Okay, we're about like halfway done. So before we jump into this more complicated one, I'm gonna do these 3 dots on the bottom. Like if you imagine in the app, it would be kind of switching between different cities. So relatively easy with this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use our shape tool. And in the shape tool, I can select to do an ellipse or a circle. And I'm just gonna create them like over here. So to create a perfect circle, you want to hold Shift. And if you want to make it from the center, you can hold Option or Alt at the same time. I'm just going to make it like this big. And just like I said, we can copy them together by holding Option again and making them together. Maybe they're a little too big. I can drag it on my frame. That looks good enough. Okay, so now I have my 3 circles. And before we jump into this like really complicated thing, I do want to show you one of the features that Figma is pretty famous for. And doing it on these circles will kind of help you understand it a little bit later. So I'm going to first make these circles white. And I'm going to turn down the opacity for these. So if I select these 2, and if I go into appearance over here in the properties panel, this is where the opacity is. So I'm going to make that, let's say like 60. So now they're a little lighter. You can barely see them, but they're there. Actually, maybe we can turn off the grid. So if you remember, you can turn off the grid by doing Control G, and let's put them together over here. I guess they're a little big, but that's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to put them in auto layout. So auto layout is this function where you can kind of organize your objects together, like, and kind of do it mathematically, sort of. But you'll see what I mean later. So let's say like I created these circles, and yeah, I kind of line them. But even if I like did like this, so I can either like center them manually, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them. And in my properties panel, I have this section called layout. And then on the right, I have this option or this icon, which kind of, it says use auto layout, or these like kind of like squares and plus. So what I'm going to do is click that, and now it organizes it for me. So just besides it being aligned, there's a couple of things that you can do in here. You have this new auto layout property or in the property section. And you can do a couple things here. So you have your width and height. This is to determine how wide you want this like kind of like section to be, or height. So this kind of works kind of like a group, but it's a little bit more organized than that. So and then another thing you can do is right now there are kind of like arranged horizontally, but I can change them to be vertical. And I can also change them to go around. This would kind of work if I had a lot of more items. But right now I kind of still want them horizontally. And I can also change like from where they start. Again, it doesn't really matter here, but I will show you later on a hard example. But just to kind of show you an example of like, this is how you can organize things like to kind of arrange nicely. And what I can also do is change the width between them. You can either change it between just one item and the other, and then that will like apply to all of them, or I can also change the number over here. So that was just like a quick introduction into auto layout, but I will show you what cool things you can do with them and create this. So I'm just gonna center this. So if you click on here in the position label, you can, if you click this while you're just selecting one thing, so not necessarily objects in a group, but just one, this will just align it to whatever your frame is. So if, you know, if I have it centered, it will be here. If I left line, it will go to the left, but right now I'm going to center it. So let's recreate this icon or our forecast for the week. So we're going to go back into our icons and illustrations, and I'm going to just grab a set of icons. Let's see which ones do. I think I used these. Let's use different ones. So you can pick any that you want and mix and match. I'm just going to do a set of them. So I'm just going to click on these using, so if I click shift, I can select a couple of them. So I'm just going to copy them into my other page. So I'm going to do Control C and then build your design here. And then I'm just going to paste them over here. And let's size them down a little bit. And one thing about sizing down is if you see like me sizing down something like this, just so the way these icons are made is, you know, we have the fill, there's another option for stroke. So for stroke is kind of like your border or line. An object can have a fill or a stroke or both together, but when you size things up and down, they will kind of keep their stroke to how thick it is. Which is not necessarily something that I want to do. So what I'm going to do is actually, let me size them up a little bit. And also to size things up and keep the proportion, I'm holding shift so that we'll keep them proportional to what they are. So to size them down without losing this kind of already existing stroke width, I'm going to show you probably one of my favorite tools in Figma. It's not even that big, but I just really like it because it makes my job a lot easier. So if you click on K, this will bring this up, this option called scale. So this is how you can size size up and down things proportionally. So now if I size it down, my stroke width kind of becomes smaller with it, and now it's not like so thick anymore, and it kind of keeps things proportional. So you can do the same thing with text, for example, if I click on slight drizzle and if I just size it up regularly, it won't really size up the text. But if I click K and size it up, then it will size it up and down like proportionally to the font size. So that's pretty cool. I wouldn't really recommend doing it on text just because you generally want to keep it a number and not just like a random number. But for things like this, it really works. So now I have my icons over here. I'm just going to bring them a little bit closer. And let's build this kind of box first. So what we're going to do is take our text again. Let's type in today. Oops. Today. Maybe not semi-bold. We'll do regular. Maybe make it 16. So that looks about right. And then I'm going to Alt or Option and drag it. So I can just copy it. I'm going to drag it down. Let's do 45 degrees / 60 degrees. Oops. I don't know what that one is, but 60 degrees. Again, if you forgot what the degree is, it's Option Shift 8 or Alt Shift 8, if I'm right, on Windows. Okay, I have my temperature, and then I'm going to do mostly cloudy, not cloudy. And I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, maybe like 12. Yeah, so now I have it here, and then I'm going to grab one of my icons. Now it's kind of cloudy, but it's a little drizzle. Like I'll just grab this one. I'm going to select it and copy it. So Control C and then Control V. Oops. Now I have it pasted over here. So now that I have this, I do see in my example, I have kind of like a box around it. So what I can do, so one way to do it is to make a rectangle and just kind of like put it on here, you know, to bring things back. You can do a left bracket, so that will put things back here, or you can also do it within like the layers panel. So I can do that and I can adjust it and manually do it. But here I'm going to show you how to do it with auto layout. So what we can do is select our things again. And now that I have this selected, I can go back into my properties panel. And in that same layout section, I'm going to do use auto layout. So now it organizes it together into one sort of frame or section or layout, whatever you want to call it. And then just like I did with the 3 circles, I can adjust the width or the distance between them to as much as I'd like. I can make it go horizontal if I'd like it. I can kind of do this, but just for this one, I'm going to do it vertical. And what I can do here is add this square behind it, but I don't need to make a square. I can just add a fill. So just like I said, fill is kind of like what fills your container. So I can just add that white color. You can change it to any color you'd like. I'm going to just keep it white. The only thing I see here is that the text on the edges is kind of a little too tight. So what I can do to fix that is adjust my padding. So in that same auto layout section, we have these 2 kind of options for horizontal padding and vertical padding. So you can adjust that how you'd like. Excuse me. So you can kind of either drag or decide, but if you see how it does that over here, so that's because in our width and height, it's not set to hug contents. You can, if you click on your width, you either have 2 options. You can either have a fixed width or have hug contents. If you know that you want your square to be specifically like this size, it can't be any bigger, I would just stick with the fixed width. But if you know, like if you think you can make it bigger and it can just adjust to whatever is inside the box, I would do hug contents, which is what we're going to do for now. So now if I adjust the padding, now it adjusts the same, like whatever is inside will adjust with it. So I'm just going to do 7 on the sides and then 7 on the top. That looks about right. It looks a little bigger, but close enough. Maybe a little, maybe let's do distance of like 5. So now I can have it set up. And one thing I want to do is around the corners for this section. And to do that, I can, on the right, there's an appearance panel, and then this is where you're going to adjust your opacity, or you can also adjust the corners. So let's do, so this is where you would round the corners. I'm just going to do like 10. So now I have this rounded corner icons, and the reason why using auto layout is pretty nifty. So let's say I created this, and it's really easy to like create this again. But let's say if I don't want it to say mostly cloudy in there anymore. So let's say if I want to delete it. So what I'm going to do is click on it and I'm going to delete it. Now you can see the box adjusts with the content again. So for that one, again, you have to have the HUD contents on the side. But yeah, so like now I can change it and it will adjust to whatever my box is. Cool, so now I have this and I'm gonna put, and actually, let's see, the fill a little bit is a little bit like lighter. So I'm gonna adjust the opacity of it to, so you can do that by going into fill and then you can adjust it to around like, let's do like 85. That looks good enough. Okay, so then one last thing I'm going to teach you guys. So we just got to make these other frames here. And, I can do that by just like copying them and changing the icon again and again. But for that, I would have to copy the icon, paste it, and, put it again. But there's an easier way to do this. Or I guess it requires some setup, but it will be easier in the long run. So what I can do is create a component. So a component is kind of this lived in like object that you can create in Figma. And this will be kind of like, you'll have your mama component. So if you copy it and put it on your designs, and if you change the mama component, it will change all the baby components with it. Mama component is probably not the worst term, but it's a good way to explain it. So I'm going to do that same icon with this one. So that way I can just adjust the other ones over here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take out this icon and I will kind of put it to the side. And then to create a component, what you want to do is you select whatever item you want the component to be. And in your properties panel, it will say like path or whatever the object is. There will be this kind of like diamond or like 4 diamond sign that will be make a component. You can also do Command Shift K, but I just like to click on that. So now it becomes this kind of purple color, and it will be like the mom component or the parent component. And so this is kind of like the single truth component. So if I copy this one, this will become a child component. And what I mean by that, let's say like I put it back in here, right? So now, okay, I'd adjust again. If let's say, okay, I want this icon to be always blue. So now you can see in our original or our baby component, now it changes again with the parent component. So that's a really nice way. Let's like imagine if I had 100 of these and I needed to change them all to blue. That way I don't have to go to each one. I can just change the main component, and that will change any of the copies of it. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create different variants of it. So what I will do is, again, if I click on it, there's a button here. Actually, before that, I'm going to change it back to black for now. I'm going to be black. Okay, so now I can select it. And now in here, there's actually this button that says add variant. It's kind of like this diamond with a plus. So now this is kind of like adding another face to it, or kind of state. Like imagine like I wear a hat and I have a lot of different hats. So the hat on my head is just kind of like what I have, but because I have different ones, this is kind of like the assortment of them. So what I can actually do is change these to be all of these different icons. So the way I can do that, let's say I want the second one to be the thunderstorm. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to copy it, go back to my variant, and make sure that I'm in my variant. So you can check that by doing or by going on the layer panel. And I'm going to paste it in there. So I'm going to do Control V, and this will paste the other one, and I'm going to delete the other one. So now this is kind of like the second variation of that component. And I'm actually going to rename it to icon. So now I have this icon for me too. So now I'm going to just do the same thing with all of them. So I'm just going to keep pressing this plus button, copying my icons and pasting them in there and just deleting the old ones. I'm just going to do that really quickly. Okay, and we're almost done. Cool. Now I have all my different icons in here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename them. So on the right here, you have, now that you have it selected, this is where you can change it. What I'm gonna rename them to rain. This one is thunderstorm or just thunder, sun. And let's do that cloudy, and then snow. Okay, so now I have all my icons in here, and I can delete the old ones. So now that I have it in here, here's what I can do, and here's how that made my life easier. So let's say I go back to my frame, and then I'm going to paste these together. You know, now that I have a lot of different ones, and what I can do is use auto layout on them, and that will also organize them. So if I select all of them and I click on auto layout again, now you can have them all organized same way. You can edit the distance between them. You can make them go horizontal or vertical wrapping. I'm going to keep it to horizontal. But the cool thing now is that I don't have to go and copy all these icons and paste them in here. Now, if I click inside of these, I can change the icon to whatever I want it to be. So let's say that's today. This will be like tomorrow. Let's do Friday. And now I changed that to be sun. So now let's say tomorrow is going to be sunny. And let's do Saturday will be snowy. Not really great weather, but, and then Sunday will be, I don't know, a thunderstorm. So cool. Now I have these set up. And just for the sake of time, I'm not going to change the names, but you can do that in your own. And the last thing I'm going to do is, again, change the opacity of this fill. So if I want to select something very specific, what I can do is press Command and select these. And also if I press Command and Shift, I can select all of these together. And I'm going to go into my fill and change the opacity to like 50. So now it's all different. Let me maybe change the, oops. So when you see that happening, that means, remember how we set it to hug contents? Let's say we don't want that to happen anymore. Like now we know that we want it to keep it to the size. What we can do is change this one to be not hugging context, but fixed width. So now we know we want it to be like this specific size. It'll be fixed width. And now we can change to sunny, and they won't change the size of it. We'll do snowy, and then thunderstorm. I don't know if I spelled that right in there, but you can't see it. And now we have our little weather app. If you do want to round the corners, just like I said, you can click on the frame and then go into the appearance, and I usually do like 40. And now it looks like a little app. And we're done. I really want to see what other people made. Oh, that's so cute, Mizzy. I love that. Kira, so cute. Oh, I like how you made these a lot bigger than mine. I also see that Kira made her own component for this one, which like I thought I would have time to show that. There's not enough time because I don't want to keep anyone here for longer than enough. But please put your design in the gallery. I'm gonna do that here. And then that's a wrap. Unless there's any questions, you guys are free to go. Good job. And again, this video is recorded, or this meeting is recorded, so feel free to watch it later if you need to.
Thank you so much for hosting this, Senia.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, let's stop the recording.